Welcome back to the shop. Going to be doing a little bit of CDI testing, comparing on the YZ250 two-stroke. Spoiler, if you're into YZ250s, you're going to want to stick around for this one because I stumbled into something here that you're not going to find anywhere else. This video will be starting out in the shop here, but then we're going to go out to the track and we're going to strap on the GoPro, do some laps, and we're going to be comparing some CDIs. So here's the deal. We keep hearing the YZ250, nothing's been changed since like 03 or 06 or whatever. It's the same bike today it's always been. But the CDI received a different part number starting in 2022 when they went to the new body work. The 02 to the 05 YZ250 had its own CDI. There's the part number for it right there and the bikes that it fits. You can see it's 02 to 05. Then in 2006, they went to this part number CDI right here, and that fits the 06 all the way to the 2021. And lastly, the current YZ250, the 2022 to 2026, well, that CDI fits from 2022. It says the 2024 right here, but we know they haven't changed it since then. Oh wait, I was wrong. In 2025, they changed the CDI part number again. So, what gives? Well, it's safe to assume, Beavis, looking at the Get CDI, it says it fits from 2003 to 2025. So, it's safe to assume that all these CDIs are going to be interchangeable. They're going to be pretty much plug and play with the same wire harness. Beavis, I'm trying to make a video. You're going to have to quiet up just a little bit for me, please. And sure, we can pay $600 and buy a Get CDI, and maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll not, depending on the tune we put on it and how we program it. But we can pick up good used CDIs on eBay for anywhere from $70 to $200, and I'm kind of speculating that there's definitely a performance difference between the 2006 to 2021 CDI compared to the 2022 and newer CDI. And I suspect that because there's just something different about the 06 to 21 bikes with that CDI. I know because I always do the same modifications to these YZ250s. I always do the same cylinder head profile. I use V-force reeds. I polish the exhaust port. I typically run a pro circuit pipe with a shorty silencer. And I've done this for all my YZ250s as well as several customers. I've put this package together for them. Now, they have a certain sound at tipping the throttle, the way how crisp they are, and when you ride them, they're just so lively at the lightest throttles, and they just have this really sharp, crisp sound. I have not quite heard that since 2022 and up. They run a little different. I'm not saying the 2022 to current is not crisp. It is an extremely crisp bike down low and runs clean, but just in comparison to the 06 and 21, it seems to be just a hair softer in that area. And unless you ride them both back to back or you know them really well like I do, you're probably not going to notice a difference. Now I understand they do have a different airbox. These older ones, well, this is the airbox design they started using in I think 2015, but even back from 2002 to 2014, that airbox, it was a more restricted airbox. And on the new model, it has this airbox that has a big air inlets right here. They claim it's supposed to allow the air to have a more straight path going into the motor, that kind of stuff. I think I feel that on these newer ones. They do seem to rev out better, stronger up top. And I'm going to say maybe that's the airbox, but maybe it is a CDI. I don't know. We're going to find out. But these, the older ones, they have more off the bottom. They're more lively. They have a different sound right off the bottom and in the lower mid-range, and they just seem to run more crisper. Now, I will say, 2006, I bought a 2006 brand new back in 2005, and right away, starting that bike up, it was so clean and crisp. It was definitely crisper and cleaner sounding in the 2005 model, that even though it had the same motor with the 5UP head, it had a different CDI than the 06 model. And ever since then, I've noticed that they were just extremely crisp running bikes. But in 2011, they lowered the compression on the head. They went to 5WM head for the 2011 and newer YZ250s on the American model. So they lowered the compression ratio, trying to alleviate some of the pinging on pump feel. They also started slipping in a little less timing. They started taking the stator plate here, just cracking it a little bit on the retarded side, which I'll put a link down in the description to a video where I discuss how to check that on your own bike and how to get that right on if yours is one of them that suffer from a slightly retarded timing. But they're looking to make the bike more pump feel friendly. You see, in 2006, all the brands were kind of going for it. They were trying to give us the most they could in stock form. And then, you know, around 2010, most of the riders were going to 4 strokes and the 2-stroke. You know, Honda wasn't making a 2-stroke anymore. Suzuki wasn't. Kawasaki wasn't. So Yamaha kind of started to water it down and make it just pump feel friendly, because they knew the average rider that was buying these in that year was just kind of play riding and stuff and probably just using pump feel and not race feel. Where in 2006, you pretty much had to mix in just a little bit of race feel and or the bike would ping. Just the magazines pointed that out. I noticed that. It's just how it was. So what I'm speculating here is I'm speculating that they took it a step further with the 22 model and up, and they are using even less ignition advancement at lower RPMs to make the bike even more pump feel friendly. I'm just speculating. We're gonna put it on the bike and find out and see how it rides, but that's just a thought. The CDI on these bikes, it affects your ignition timing curve, the advancement as you go up into the RPMs or down to idle. It changes your ignition advancement curve, as well as it controls the power jet, when the power jet will open up to allow more fuel into the motor or close to block it off. Now there'll be a link in the description to the power jet where I completely rip through a power jet. I hook up a timing light to the bike, show you when it uses the power jet, when it doesn't, how to diagnose it. I mean, I just dived into the power jet, so check down the description there if you're interested in that. But between them two things, it can definitely change the way a bike feels, so that's why I'm interested in trying it out. In the perfect world, I'll get the sharpness and crispness of the older YZ250, but yet the top end pull of the newer YZ250 when I put the older YZ250 CDI on the newer YZ250. That's what I'm hoping happens, but we won't know till we try. Another thing I'm curious about is the rev limiter, how high the CDI allows the bike to rev out. Because I do notice the 2022 and newer bikes do seem to rev out higher, and they have a stronger top end pull. Again, that could be attributed to the airbox, but maybe the CDI works with that, and that's why we're going to test the 06 to 21 CDI on this bike and see if this bike still retains that strong top end pull. If it does, then we'll know that, well, it's the airbox unit. But if it doesn't, then we're going to know, no, the CDI definitely helps out.
She wouldn't listen. So you parked over here and now we're in the sun.
That's because you don't like them girls over there.
Yeah. Going viral?
Josh is not into girls.
My wife knows that's true. I only like her.
All right.
Going viral?
Yeah. What's up, Patrick?
What's up?
We got Turbo here. What's up, Turbo? Spyder MX. I'm going to start with the original 2022 CDI on my 2022 YZ250. Go out and see how that does, get warmed up with that.
Barto's fun.
Here at Spyder MX, they don't groom midday. Great track, love the track, but they don't groom midday, and so you know, track's going to get rough as the day goes on. So I'm trying to get this review in early in the day while the track's still a little bit smoother. That way I can focus on the CDI instead of focusing on my riding. All right, let's go out and test it. I just installed the 06 to 2021 CDI. Let's go out and take that for a ride, see how it does. Okay, there is definitely a difference. So, I mean, that's good. At least for the video's sake, I would hate to do this video and be like, well, I can't tell a difference. No, there's definitely a difference. Now, I'm going to do one more ride with the 2022 CDI back on. I kind of like to go back and forth just a little bit, and then I'll give you the verdict and tell you what I think. But there's definitely a difference between these two CDIs. Back in the shop. Well, that was a pretty interesting test. Well, for me it was, at least, because that 06 to 21 CDI that I used in this test, I used it on my older YZ250 that I use in the hair scrambles, and that bike, the motor is a complete copy of this motor. Same head profile, same reed, same pipe and silencer, everything's identical. However, when I used that CDI on this bike, it made this bike feel exactly like that bike. Pretty interesting. So what was the difference? Well, the 0621 CDI definitely brought a sharper response to this, more lively down in the bottom end and more thrustier in the mid-range. However, once you get on the pipe and up in the power band, it wasn't quite as strong as the 2022 CDI. That's unfortunate. I was hoping I was going to get the best of both worlds, but it doesn't seem so. I put the 22 CDI back in, and I got that nice top end back. Now, obviously, the 22 CDI doesn't quite have the thrust or the sharpness down on the bottom that the 06 to 21 CDI has. But once you get up on the pipe and in the power band, it produced what felt like about 1.5 horsepower to 2 horsepower more up in the top end. Felt like it might have revved a little higher as well, and interesting part is it felt like I had more throttle control up in that top end, where the older CDI, the 06 to 21 CDI, kind of felt like once you're up in the top end, it was of all or nothing type experience. Like you could twist the throttle a little bit, you know, you're at full throttle, you can get out of it a little bit like this, and you just kind of get the same power. Where the 22 to 24 CDI, once I'm up in there, I had modulation. I could crack out a little bit, and it would ease up on that top end power a little bit, and I can get back into it and give me all of that when I would get back into it. Now keep in mind, these do have a throttle position sensor on the carburetor, right? So the CDI knows how much throttle you're giving it. I just believe what I think I'm seeing here is in the older model, they weren't paying attention to the throttle position sensor and the calibration as much at the high RPMs range. They were more concerned about the bottom and the mid area, where on the 22 to 24 CDI, they definitely, it seems to have a higher resolution as far as paying attention to the TPS, the throttle position sensor, when you're in that top end. So when I'm on the track, a motocross track, without a doubt, the 2022 to 2024 CDI is clearly a winner, because I'm not using a lot of bottom end on the track, and I don't need all that thrust on the track, but I definitely need good control in the top end and good top end power, and that extra 1.5 to 2 horsepower the 2022 to 2024 seems to make, at least that's what my butt dyno says. Well, that's appreciated on the track. It really is. Here I was thinking it was maybe the airbox that was allowing these 22 and newer bikes to have more top end, but now I'm starting to think it's more in the CDI. If I had to guess, the 06 to 21 CDI gives a little more timing advancement in the lower RPM range, so it's firing a little bit sooner, and that's what's providing more torque and more thrust in that area. And that's what it feels like when I ride the bike. I mean, I've been tuning two-strokes for a lot of years, and I know that feeling. And it just has more timing advancement. Where the 22 to newer the 22 to 24 CDI doesn't seem like it's running as much timing advancement down in the lower range of things. And that would make sense because I think they're trying to make them more pump feel friendly, and that would definitely allow that. Now, two-strokes are funny animals, right? They like timing down low to create more power, but as you get up into the power band, or when you climb on the pipe and the pipe comes into effect, then they actually like less ignition advancement to make power. As the timing retards when it gets up into the top end, it will send more heat into the expansion chamber, and expansion chambers work better when they're hotter, which will create a more force-fed or boosted feel out of the motor. I believe that what's going on with the 2022 to 2024 CDI is it's running less timing up in the power band, less timing down low, but also less timing in the power band as well, which is creating that extra top end power. But it's also paying attention to the throttle position sensor more. I can feel that. It gives me more throttle control when I'm up in that peak horsepower area. So on the track, the newer CDI is a winner. However, for me, in the hare scrambles, off-road, I still like the thrusty feel of the 06 to 21 CDI, and so that's the CDI I'll continue using in the off-road. I'll keep that on my other bike that I currently use for the hare scrambles. The thrust is nice. I don't use as much top end in the woods, maybe brief moments here or there. My suggestion for you guys out there is if you have a 22 or newer and you're actually looking for more bottom end, try the 06 to 21 CDI, and you're gonna get more bottom end. You're gonna lose a little bit of top end. It's not gonna feel quite as lively or rev happy as the 22 to 24 CDI would, but you'll definitely gain some torque and you'll definitely gain some thrust. And for you guys with the older YZ250s, I think from 03, 02 or 03 all the way up to the 21, if you're looking for more top end power, well, then try out the 22 to 24 CDI. You'll definitely get more top end power and more control of that top end power. Again, it feels like about 1.5 horsepower to 2 horsepower. That's a pretty significant mod if you're chasing horsepower. That's pretty significant. And I assure you that you will feel it. I definitely felt the difference. Now you're going to say, well, I have this older YZ. What about the airbox though? Don't I need to get more flow? Well, maybe you do, and there are things you can do. I don't have a 03 to 14 bodywork here to show you on that one, but on the 15 to 21, you see this number plate right here? Well, let me show you. All right, you see this area is supposed to be a vent for the airbox right here. You see how it's blocked off right there? You can take a razor blade, sharp razor, and just cut this out right here to extend that and open that up fully. You'll see right here on this one, I have done that to this. It's opened up fully, and you will feel that. I know when I originally started doing these number plates on the 250s, I felt it. And sure, there are other things you can do to increase the airflow in the airbox, but I believe that's really just enough, because between getting this fully open on both sides, plus the air that it receives in here, plus the air that it receives in the water drain on the bottom of the airbox, I believe that's enough. So if you open your airbox up and then you use a 22 to 24 CDI, I'm pretty sure you're gonna gain about 1.5 horsepower to 2 horsepower of top end power on your YZ250. Again, it will make your bottom end feel a little bit softer, a little bit not quite as crisp, and a little bit less thrusty feeling, but not bad. It's not going to turn into a turd by any means, not at all. If you've ridden one of these 22 and newer YZs, they're not a turd down low. They're just not quite as lively as the 06 to 21. That's all I'm saying. So once again, this is the part number for the 06 to 21 YZ250 CDI. And this is the part number for the 22 to 24. Now you notice the only thing different in this part number is it's a 01 right here instead of just a 00. And then if we look at a 25 and newer, same part number, but now it's a 02. What this is, this block right here, this is your revision. So the first one, 06, that was their first model. Then the 22, that was one revision, and 25, there's their second revision. So I'll give you a little tip here if you're looking to pick one of these up used. See the 1P8 right there at the beginning of the part number? Well, on the CDI you have 1P8 and a 00. That's your 06 to 21 CDI. And on this one right here, this is the 22, you have the 1P8 and a 01. So that's the first revision. And then if it's a 25 or newer, they'll have the 1P8 and it'll say 02. So that would be your second revision. Now you're probably wondering, what does a 25 and up CDI feel like? What's the difference there? Well, I'm wondering the same thing. My buddy has a 25. He was at the track today, but it was at the end of the day, I already geared down when I realized, hey, isn't your bike a 25? But he told me next time I see him, I can try out his CDI on my bike and see what I think, and I will make a video on that, let you know if there's any improvement on the 25 and up CDI compared to the 22 to 24, and obviously the 06 to 21. But as of right now, I can tell you certainly that the 22 to 24 CDI does make more horsepower up top and more top end power. And if that's what you're looking for, that's what you're going to want on your bike. And if you're looking for more bottom end and more thrust in the mid range, well, you're probably going to want the 06 to 21 CDI. So there you have it. Boy, that was a tough track today. It got really rough. I really wasn't riding that good. Wasn't my best riding today, but doesn't stop me from getting a good test ride in, getting a good review in, and we definitely did that. Don't forget to check down in the description if you're interested in the power jet, and also if you're interested in your timing. For the timing, there'll be two videos, one of how to just set it by eye, and another one where I break out a dial indicator and go through all that mess. But both of them videos will walk you through getting your timing set right, because remember, somewhere around 2011 or so and on, they sent a lot of these out with the timing slightly retarded to kind of help them run on pump gas a little bit better. Also, keep in mind, if you don't want to do a head modification, which I have a video on doing a head modification at home. Matter of fact, I'll put a link in the description to that video as well if you haven't already caught it. If you don't want to do that and you have a 2011 or newer, and you're looking just to bump it up, and you're willing to run a little bit of race gas, you're going to need to run at least 1 gallon of 110 leaded race fuel or C12 with 4 gallons pump fuel. So it's going to be 1 gallon race, 4 gallons pump. You're going to need at least that. But if you bolt on the 5UP head that came on the American model from 2003 to 2010, you're going to get a nice bump in power. I promise you. That's all you got to do is bolt that cylinder head on, and bam, there it is. Alright, I'm going to go in the house, edit this video up, get it on YouTube, and enjoy my evening. I hope all you guys had a great weekend of riding. I sure did. I'll catch you in the next video.